on the $1,400 checks. You made that promise. You're sticking to it. So the big question is who gets the check?
Exactly right.
Is it someone who makes up to $50,000 or is it someone who makes up to $75,000?
I'm prepared to negotiate that, but here's the deal. Middle-class folks need help. But you don't need to get any help to someone making $300,000 or $250,000. So it's somewhere between an individual making up to $75,000 and phasing out, and a couple making up to $150,000 and phasing out. But again, I'm wide open on what that is.
You also want to raise the minimum wage to $15. Is that something you would be willing to negotiate on in order to get Republican support?
Well, apparently that's not going to occur because of the rules of the United States Senate.
So you're saying the minimum wage won't be in this?
My guess is it will not be in it. But I do think that we should have a minimum wage stand by itself, $15 an hour, and work your way up to the 15. It doesn't have to be boom. And all the economics show if you do that, the whole economy rises. I'm prepared as President of the United States on a separate negotiation on minimum wage to work my way up from what it is now, which is pain. Look, no one should work 40 hours a week and live below the poverty wage. And if you're making less than $15 an hour, you're living below the poverty wage.
But that may not be in your American Rescue Plan.
No, I put it in, but I don't think it's going to survive.
Let's turn to the impeachment trial. President Trump's impeachment trial. If you were still a senator, would you vote to convict him?
Look, I ran like hell to defeat him because I thought he was unfit to be president.
Don't be a pussy. Do not be a pussy. Fucking say it, dude. Fucking say it. And say it with your chest.
That's what everybody else watched. What happened when that crew invaded the United States Congress. But I'm not in the Senate now. I'll let the Senate make that decision.
Well, let me ask you then something that you do have oversight of as president. Should former President Trump still receive intelligence briefings?
Did I watch the... Is this the same fucking video? Very frustrating.
Welcome back. We're here at the White House with the President of the United States. Mr. President, thank you.
Great to be with you. Thank you.
This Super Bowl is going to be unlike any other. I mean, about 25,000 fans in the stands. Do you think a year from now there will be a Super Bowl where they can play in front of a full stadium?
It's my hope and expectation if we're able to put it together and make up for all the lost time fighting COVID.
This is so dumb. I'm sorry. This is a fucking idiotic question, an idiotic answer. Why is this even a thing? Like, will the American people be able to get together at the Super Bowl? Like, what the fuck kind of... Yo, this is why Republicans get so triggered when they're like, they love Joseph Robinette Biden. They love him. That's why they never ask questions that are hard to him. They don't ask him hard questions like, I mean, what are you doing? You got limited amount of time. You got limited amount of time to talk to this fucking guy. And this is one of your questions? What will the American people think about the Bruce Springsteen ad, Mr. President? Will we finally find the middle? Is Big Bird actually... By the way, I haven't seen a single one of these fucking ads yet. And I just know this just by looking at Twitter. I've seen stuff on the timeline so far. Will America unite around the fact that Big Bird thinks Proposition 22 is good? And that gig economy workers do not deserve rights and should be murdered if they don't deliver food in a timely manner by Postmates with no legal repercussions? Like, that's actually that's what the question I gotta ask.
That's occurred, that we'll be able to watch the Super Bowl with a full stadium. The Super Bowl is just one of those great American celebrations, and all those house parties, all those things that aren't happening. But God willing, we're going to be able to celebrate it all as usual a year from now.
But there may be some house parties happening.
Oh, I'm sure there are. I know it's hard. It was hard at Christmas, Thanksgiving, New Year's. But, you know, I hope people, if you're watching, be careful. Be careful.
People want to know when things are going to get back to normal.
Yep.
And the road ahead is pretty daunting. To get herd immunity, Dr. Fauci has said you have to have at least 75% of
By the way, Mini Kush literally means little bird, not big bird, just for the record.
Americans vaccinated. We did the math, and at the current rate of 1.3 million doses a day, it's going to take almost a year to get there. Can we wait that long?
No, we can't. That's why one of the disappointments was when we came into office is the circumstance relating to how the administration was handling COVID was even more dire than we thought.
The Trump administration.
The Trump administration.
It's top of the hour every hour. It's time for a 60-second ad break, folks. I apologize for stopping it midway, but I need to be more timely with my ad breaks. So, top of the hour every hour. It's time for a 60-second ad break, the first of the day. If you want to no longer see the ads, all you need to do is subscribe. You can do it for $5 or for free. You can do it for free with a Twitch Prime by connecting your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account. Here's the ad. I haven't got my 600 stimmy. Why should I think the vaccine is coming any quicker? It's probably not. Americans are so impatient expecting disease to fade over into nothing overnight. No, but it is understandable that Americans expect a more expedient vaccine delivery. Again, we are the wealthiest nation on earth. I have to repeat myself. And that's not even what they're saying. They're saying, like, why, it's going to take a fucking year to deliver vaccines to as many people to reach herd immunity. And that's a long time.
We thought they indicated there was a lot more vaccine available, and it didn't turn out to be the case. So that's why we've ramped up every way we can.
I see no ad. It's probably from where you are in the world. If you're not in NA, you get less ads overall.
I got a call through Commissioner Goodell saying we could have all 32 NFL stadiums available for mass vaccinations. We are...
Are you going to use them, NFL stadiums, to vaccinate?
Absolutely, we will. I mean, let me put it this way. I'm telling my team they're available, and I believe we'll use them. Look, it was one thing if we had enough vaccine, which we didn't, so we're pushing as hard as we can to get more vaccine manufactured.
You're President of the United States, Commander-in-Chief. Can you do something in terms of going to Moderna, going to Pfizer, saying we need more production?
Yes, I think, because we've already done it. But the idea that this can be done and we can get to herd immunity much before the end of this summer is very difficult.
Let's turn to schools.
Sure.
About 20 million American children have not been in the classroom for nearly a year. There's a mental health crisis happening.
There really is.
Women are dropping out of the workforce. Is this a national emergency?
It is a national emergency. It generally is a national emergency.
Do you think it's time for schools to reopen?
I think it's time for schools to reopen safely. Safely. You have to have fewer people in the classroom. You have to have ventilation systems that have been reworked. Our CDC commissioner is going to be coming out with science-based judgment within, I think, as early as Wednesday as to lay out what the minimum requirements are.
It's so hard with kids not being able to play sports now.
It really is. I think about the price so many of my grandkids and your kids are going to pay for not having had the chance to finish whatever it was. That graduation where you didn't get to walk across the stage. I think they're going through a lot, these kids.
So many people may not know.
He's right, guys. Stop saying sports is a megalol. He's not wrong. He's not wrong. Dude, we've had this argument a million times over. Schools are incredibly important for social development, for social cohesion. They're incredibly important for kids to fucking go back. It's incredibly important for kids to go back to school. Obviously, in the middle of fucking Twitch chat, no one is going to agree with me because all of you love the fact that you get to fucking not really watch your classes on Zoom. My niece and, or not my niece and nephew, my cousins are like 7 and I think 10 or something. I don't know. I forget how old they are, but one's 7, one's like 6 or 5 or whatever. They fucking love that they don't have to go to school. They love it. They're like, yeah, I fucking absolutely love it. It is because schools are, they're hard to navigate social environments. And if you're young, that's really stressful for you. You get to do less homework overall. You get to do less school overall. Like, of course you don't want to fucking go to school, but it's still good for you. Okay. It's still good for you. And in-person classes are really important for developing your social skills and whatnot. Yeah, okay, anarchists, schools are prisons. Anyway, fuck school. I love not having to hear my loud ass bitches in the morning. Yeah, I know. I was young once. Okay, I know what it's like when you're, getting on the school bus and it fucking sucks because every day sucks ass. And you're worried that you're going to get bullied. I know that. I know that feeling, okay? I've lived through that. Trust me. Hold everyone back 1 year? No, that's terrible. Yeah, going to school is like eating your fruits and vegetables. Exactly. Something that you overall don't want to do. You want to eat dessert all day, but if you eat dessert all day, then you turn into America, okay? One of the most obese nations on the planet. Just like if you fucking don't go to school, or I guess in America, even if you do go to school, you still turn into America, one of the worst countries for education. In comparable OECD nations, of course.
You were once a pretty good receiver yourself back in the day.
I had wild dreams. It wasn't to be president. I thought I could be a flanker back.
But the problem here is that when we move away from the importance of going to school, you have to recognize that you can't send kids and teachers back to school with the current way that the schools work. Because underfunded school districts are absolutely going to be super spreaders, and they have been. And teachers are going to get COVID and fucking die. They don't deserve it. They don't get paid enough as it is. Now they're going to go get COVID and then give it to granddad at home and fucking kill their families. Like, that's terrible. So many teachers have already died from COVID. They shouldn't. They don't have to.
Back in the NFL.
But as a former receiver, which quarterback would you rather have throw to you? Tom Brady or Mahomes?
Obviously, Brady's a great quarterback. Mahomes seems like he's got a lot of potential. And so I'd probably take a shot with the young guy that didn't expect as much from.
You thinking the Kansas City Chiefs may win?
Well, I didn't say that. I don't know who's going to win. I think they're both great quarterbacks. One is just a younger version, potentially, of an old, great quarterback. Not old, in NFL terms, old.
Mr. President, thank you for joining us.
It's difficult situation because my brother's autistic. He got really comfortable distance learning because me and my family are on him. I fear that once he goes back, he's going to lose his progress. Yeah, I get it. But again, for the large majority of like neurotypical folks and whatnot, school, even if you go through bullying and whatnot, is still incredibly and profoundly important for your social development. I understand though, but if you'd ask the president of the United States anything, what would you ask him? That is a 6-year-old me answer. Yeah. This was a lukewarm interview? I know. School was the one time I was able to get a decent lunch as a poor kid growing up. Also, school sports were the only thing keeping me out of trouble. Yeah, like there's another element to this. In underfunded neighborhoods, school programs or an increase in after-school programs, for example, literally directly correlate with a decrease in additional crimes occurring in that specific age group. Okay? You increase after-school programs in places like Chicago, boom. Crime starts, there's lower rates of crime as a consequence of that. Because when you keep kids busy, they don't go out and fuck around. So you know, that it is supremely important. It's really important for food, as a chatter pointed out, for millions of food insecure families. It is so important in every way. That's why a lot of schools, even during the peak of COVID, when schools weren't open, were still doing their food programs, because that's the first and foremost most important thing that a school does, is provide a relatively healthy meal for so many food insecure families. The only meal that they will get that has like nutritious things included in it. They say the vaccine no good with the African variant. Yes, the South African variant of the COVID, just AstraZeneca. The AstraZeneca vaccination rollout has been halted in South Africa because they had a very, very limited, very narrow scope in testing, where they looked at the coronavirus cases. Now, South Africa and the UK are two separate strains that have been really scaring people for this reason. Right? And in their limited trial that they conducted, they found that it wasn't effective. The South African strain was not effective, or the AstraZeneca vaccine was not effective on the South African strain. And that's the reason why they stopped using it. There's still going to be potential booster shots. And AstraZeneca is not one that's being used in I don't think that this is one that's like super common here. In America we use Pfizer, and what's the other one what's the one that Dogan got? Anne. Oh, Moderna, thank you. She has her headphones in, so she can't hear anything I'm saying. Yeah, we have Pfizer and Moderna. Those are like the two common ones. Don't forget the Brazilian strain too that started spreading in the EU. Yes. Overall, it still works. It's just not as effective as the other ones, is what they are saying. Anyway, you have the Moderna, the RNA one, the Oxford University AstraZeneca one, the viral vector genetically modified virus. That needs 2 doses. The RNA one, that is Pfizer BioNTech, the one that was the one that was created by the Turkish person. You have Gamaleya Sputnik V, the viral vector. You have Sinovac, the Coronavac, the inactivated virus, the weakened virus version, which is the Chinese one. And that's the one that they're giving to people in Turkey. You have Novavax, which is a protein-based one, and Janssen, which is a viral vector as well. There's only one, the Janssen one, that's only one shot. In science speak, that basically means completely ineffective law because it can still spread freely with mild cases. Yes. That is the reason why they stopped vaccinating people, because it would lead to people getting a false sense of security if it still allows mild cases. It's still good, though. No, that's not science speak for being fucking bullshit, because it prevents you from dying still, from what we understand. It just doesn't prevent the virus from spreading. Are the vaccines just going to be space race, but for corporations/nations? Like, the big thing that most of these vaccines do is develop antibodies in your body for when you do get a viral load, you avoid dying. You avoid some of the worst symptoms. It also has the capability of, because it increases the viral load necessary, some of them do, to get infected, is what they think. And this isn't fully proven at all. We don't have enough information yet. They assume that it will make it harder for the virus to spread as well. Yes, it still prevents the virus from spreading to a certain degree because if it's a milder case, you get healthy faster and have a shorter period where you can infect someone. Exactly. It's crazy how you even have to explain how a vaccine is supposed to work. That's not that crazy. Many people don't know that. I understand why they wouldn't know that. Why would you trust people you don't even know to put a vaccine in you? Why do you trust people that you don't know to put food in your body? Like, literally everything you do under a division of labor backed economic organization and commodity production is done by people you have never seen, and you just assume that there are checks in place to ensure that you don't fucking die. The same concept with vaccines exists for literally a McDonald's burger. Yeah, why would you trust your doctor? Do you know your doctor personally? That might be the stupidest take I've read today, which is pretty cool. I wonder if someone will top that. That was good. I'm sure when we get to my fucking Tom Brady sports ball takes, people will probably top it quickly, but no, that's not a challenge. It's not a fucking challenge. Shut up. Johnson & Johnson, like a flu shot, only reduces the symptoms, and that's why it's one dose. My stepmom was a former heroin addict, said the same thing, but she didn't seem to mind when she put heroin in her body when she had no idea what the fuck was in there. Yeah, well. Big news. The Progressive Caucus has secured the inclusion of $15 minimum wage in the House's pandemic reconciliation package as of 7 minutes ago. This has been a leading priority for our caucus and would give 27 million low-wage workers a raise. Every job has dignity and every worker deserves to earn a wage that they can live on by including the $15 minimum wage in the pandemic. Relief package. Congress has the chance to lift nearly 1 million people out of poverty and raise the minimum wage for the first time in over a decade. The Progressive Caucus was the first caucus to support a $15 minimum wage with the introduction of the Pay Workers a Living Wage Act in 2015. Thank you, Ed Labor Committee Chairman Bobby Scott and Speaker Pelosi for working with us to get this done. Nice. Honestly, isn't this just going to reduce everyone's hours and fuck small businesses? No. No, it's not. That's the honest answer. No. Millions of people will be lifted out of poverty. This will only be good. The Congressional Budget Office, which offers very conservative estimates on this sort of thing, still recognizes the reality that millions of people are going to be lifted out of poverty, and that, yes, there might be a million jobs lost as a consequence of this, which is not proven and historically has not happened in places where they do end up raising the minimum wage. Even with that, there's still... even with that, millions more people are still going to be lifted out of poverty. So you have to remember that. There's always winners and losers in every policy. And what you're supposed to do when you're crafting a policy is to ensure that the losers are the right people that are bearing the brunt or that are shouldering the burden of this proposal, which is why it should always be rich people, the very wealthy people that suffer from this. No jobs for teenagers? That's not true. That is a meme. This notion that like minimum wage work is just for teenagers is completely a fucking meme. There is still a gigantic chunk of minimum wage workers that are not teenagers. As a matter of fact, most of the workers are still over the age of 19. So these are the same arguments that Republicans and conservatives put forward all the time whenever we're discussing minimum wage. But, what about small businesses, though? There aren't exactly the rich and wealthy people. Yeah, great question. Now, there is a reason for why, for example, in the state of California, there is an adjusted increase. First of all, it's not an immediate increase to $15 tomorrow. It is going to be either 4 or 5 years, depending on whose plan we are going to go forward with, whether it's Biden's plan in 4 years or Bernie's plan in 5 years, or even some different plan that they might put together. Or I guess they're going with the 4-year plan, or I guess they're going with the 5-year plan if it's the Progressive Caucus one. But regardless, not only that, but then there's also additional safety checks on top of that, where certain states will be able to limit how they get to the 5-year plan and how they raise the minimum wage. It doesn't automatically kick in, and it doesn't kick in for small businesses in comparison to large businesses. That's why in the state of California, there is a different rate for businesses that I think have less than 25 employees versus businesses that have more than 25 employees. Okay? Maybe defending child labor isn't the best angle to attack your argument from chatters. What? What? You think I'm defending child labor? What the fuck? Da Vinci, dude? There's no reason why children who are working these hours shouldn't get paid more as well. Because oftentimes kids aren't working these hours because they want to get like a new fucking jet ski or something. They're working these hours because they need to help pay for things that their family needs to pay for. Not only that, but yeah, 88% of, what is the percentage? Is it 88%? Like the majority, I know the majority of minimum wage workers are over the age of 19, but and even if they are literally working to buy a jet ski, like who gives a fuck? That's the thing that I don't. That's the thing that I don't understand. Like, oh well, these are supposed to be like introductory jobs. Like, okay, well we know that these are entry level positions. Why shouldn't they pay more? Like, I think that even if kids were working these jobs, they should be paid $15 an hour. Like they're doing the same fucking job. I worked since I was 14 and that money went towards school trip abroad and later for college expenses. Yeah. Anyway. Some countries, teenagers can't work. Maybe that's why in the question. Yeah, I was shocked to find out what. I was shocked to find out that the American labor laws around like child labor is crazy loose. I actually thought this was an argument that labor unions had fought and won many years ago. But no, in America, there are very loose restrictions, very limited restrictions on child labor. It's kind of wild. If you're a child who doesn't have to help your parents pay your bills, you're privileged. Yes, in comparison to children who are less privileged than you, but that doesn't mean that you're privileged across the board. I say this as a privileged person, by the way. I'm super privileged, or was super privileged. Would this not make people leave working at small business for larger chains? I support the $15 minimum wage, but maybe I'm misunderstanding. No, you are misunderstanding. Because that exists already. Like, just get a different job at a larger company forehead. Well, that argument exists currently. Like, why aren't you... Go tell that to the fucking Walmart worker, you know what I mean? Or not Walmart worker, sorry. Go tell that to the guy who's working at a small business right now and getting paid nothing or barely making ends meet. Why don't you just go work at Walmart? You could probably get paid more. Why doesn't it work right now? Why doesn't that argument currently work? Feels like most of the people who say minimum wage jobs are for teens haven't worked them somehow. Working at a grocery store was outnumbered by people in the middle of their lives who had made this their career. I feel like an outsider being used as a tool to lessen their wages, sort of like a scab almost. The funny thing is, it's not even just that. They have to be people that literally have never been inside of a McDonald's or a grocery store. Like, do you close your eyes when you walk into a fast food chain? Do you close your eyes and close your ears and go, la, 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 I'm just here to grab my Tostitos chips and move the fuck out. Like, you literally see the goddamn middle-aged employees in front of you. Like, it's anecdotal. It also corresponds to the actual data, but still, like, even anecdotally, you literally see it. I do not see workers. They are invisible to me. Isn't national minimum wage a dumb idea? Genuine question. I mean, it depends. If you raise, first of all, I don't think so. I ideologically speaking, I don't think so. I think minimum wage is again a bandage solution to a broader problem of not having enough labor unions and labor protection as a consequence of collective bargaining agreements. Okay, but I don't even think that $15 minimum wage is good enough. If you ask me, in a perfect world, I would wish that people had made even more money than $15 when they're working. But when you look at the data and you look at what minimum wage should be at the federal level, right now $15 in minimum wage at the federal level is not too expensive for a place like fucking West Virginia either. That's the point. That's why the number is low at the national level, which will increase the minimum wage in states like San Francisco in places like San Francisco, in states like California, in states like Colorado, and in other parts of the country where they have already increased the minimum wage. They will be able to now increase the minimum wage even further. Okay? Because no matter where you live in the country, whether you live in Wyoming, whether you live in Omaha, whether you live in, Alabama, $15 minimum wage isn't too much. It's a decent starting point for those places. And it's still low for all the other areas that I spoke of that already have higher, or that have already raised their minimum wages. $15 hours is too low for where I live, which is Reno. Most places already pay that around here. Yeah. Honestly, what's probably happening is that these people just live in rich suburban areas where all the people working these jobs are teenagers because they can be true in their privileged areas. What? Anyway, we always have this convo around minimum wage whenever we have a convo about minimum wage. It's a good thing overall. I recently got a raise of $20 an hour in New York City, and I still have to commute 2.5 hours each way because I can't afford reasonable housing. In New York City? Dude, if I were you in New York City, I would look into getting an apartment with some friends, because right now, especially because of COVID, the rental market is kind of fucking primo. Even if it's literally getting a fucking like, people don't want to live inside of apartments. That's why it's pretty fucking decent. And I heard that the same thing is happening in San Francisco as well. It's still going to be expensive, but it will be way more affordable than ever before. In the past, it was impossible. In the past, it was fucking impossible. Like, there's no living in New York City. If you're living in minimum wage, you have to commute 2.5 hours. But you could now technically feasibly find a 3-bedroom apartment with some other people. You're always saying that there's one good thing about the scraps they give us, SSI, pre-existing conditions protections, and these things are hard to take. Yes. If American workers get used to $1 raises every year for the next 4 years, let's see them try to argue against $16 in 2026 and $17 in 2027. Yeah. New York City rents are at or below 2008 levels. Yup. From what I understand, even San Francisco rent is going down, which is good. And of course, this isn't the same for like buying a house because everyone is still buying houses, or wealthy people are still looking to buy houses. They're trying to move out of their apartments and like buy a house for themselves or have a backyard and shit. So that's part of the reason why it's now cheaper than ever in recent years to be able to rent a place because of COVID. That's not true at all. My friends are paying $2,300 for a 2-bedroom and they work at coffee shops. It's not livable. What? Here come the fucking anecdotes. I'm saying, obviously you have to budget it on your own, but this is a good time to look for, as long as you have like a 3-bedroom or something. This is a good, guys, you're talking to someone who lived in the kitchen of a frat house, okay? When I first moved to Los Angeles. Like, I every single piece of fucking furniture I owned until like this past year is literally trash of other people. Like I would just troll around. If I would find like a fucking couch in someone's front yard, boom, new couch. Like I know Los Angeles is very expensive. What about middle wage earners who find themselves now much closer to the bottom of the earnings ladder? No, that doesn't. Guy, if you're middle class or if you're not making minimum wage, if you're making more than minimum wage, like your wages will increase as well. Also, what kind of fucking argument is that? Like, I hate that argument where it's like, oh, well, we're going to be similar to the poor now. Like the poor are going to have as much money as us is such a fucking idiotic argument. And anytime someone makes that argument, a wealthy like oil baron, okay, wearing a fucking monocle comes. Like whenever members of the working class get to engage in that crabs in a bucket mentality, you are making Monopoly Man and the Pringles Man fuck each other in the ass and come super hard like they've never come before. Like, oh, the poor people, they're fighting amongst themselves again. Oh no, I'm about to ejaculate. If everyone earns $15, then we're all going to be eating and shitting in the same tent or hut, maybe even a small commune where they use bottled piss for fuel. Yeah, for sure. I would rather have the people making my food make good money, pay a little extra than know that someone is struggling to make ends meet while I save 15 cents. Yeah. The cost of the foods is not going to fucking skyrocket either. That is where the free market is supposed to do its work, folks. No one's going to buy a Big Mac for $20. And McDonald's knows that, so they have to eat into their own profits. They have to eat into their profit margin. And that's what the rich know. And that's precisely why they tell you to fight amongst yourselves by putting out all these other counters to say, hey, $15 minimum wage. Well, that's too much money for you poors. That's, that's the reality.
Let's enjoy the game.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Biden, enjoy the game. Enjoying a game for a dude who owes American people $2,000, dude. I don't know about that. I see you hosting a Super Bowl party, bitch. Where's the $2,000, motherfucker? Hey, yo, motherfucker. You think you can fucking... Hey, this fucking guy over here, he's fucking enjoying his... He's enjoying his fucking Super Bowl party. Let me see your fucking shoes, Joseph.
Tradition that is going on as planned this year, the pregame interview with the president. Our Nora O'Donnell sat down with President Biden on Friday. She talked to him about China and also about the challenges of re-entering the nuclear deal with Iran, which has begun enriching nuclear fuel close to weapons-grade levels.
The U.S.-China relationship is probably one of the most important in the entire world. Why haven't you called Xi Jinping?
Well, we haven't had occasion to talk to one another yet. There's no reason not to call him. I probably spent more time with Xi Jinping, I'm told, than any world leader has because I had 24.
Because he loves him. Because he's gay for Xi Jinping. Folks, I know it. I know it. Look at that handshake. Fellas,
20 Xi
fellas,
Jinping
is it gay to
told in any world.
Is it gay to shake the hand of Xi Jinping, huh? After all, you're touching another man's hands, folks. That man might have even touched his own dick. So by transitive property, you're basically touching his dick. And that's gay.
Leader has, because I had 24, 25 hours of private meetings with him when I was vice president, traveled 17,000 miles with him. I know him pretty well.
There's a lot to talk about.
A lot to talk about, a whole lot to talk about. And he's very bright, he's very tough. He doesn't have, and I don't mean as a criticism, just a reality, he doesn't have a democratic small d bone in his body, but he is, the question is, I've said to him all along, that we need not have a conflict, but there's going to be an extreme competition. And I'm not going to do it the way that he knows this, because he's been sending signals as well, that I'm not going to do it the way Trump did. We're going to focus on international rules of the road.
Will the U.S. lift sanctions first? In order to get Iran back to the negotiating table?
No.
They have to stop enriching uranium first.
It appears there is a standoff.
Great. Great. I'm glad that we're banging on the war drums against Iran. Cool. Okay, so there is supposedly a battle of forces in the Republican Party, folks. So that's another thing that we're going to talk about today, which is the Liz Cheney polarizing plank of the Republican Party, the moderate Republicans that want to advocate for, reasonable solutions, that sort of thing, and then the Marjorie Taylor Greene part of the Republican Party. Now, Liz Cheney is a daughter of Dick Cheney, horrible, horrific monster, no morality, nothing. I mean, everything that she's saying, appealing to those reasonable Democrats and reasonable Republicans in the middle, is bullshit. It doesn't fucking matter. She sold out her own lesbian sister for a political position, something that even heartless monster Dick Cheney didn't do, by the way. Remember, Dick Cheney literally didn't run for president because he was like, my daughter's a lesbian, and that's going to be really fucking terrible. It was one of the reasons, one of the many reasons why Dick Cheney didn't do it. And Liz Cheney was like, yeah, no, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to fucking throw her under the bus. Who gives a shit? So, and Dick Cheney should be rotting in prison. And Liz Cheney is a horrible monster as well. But she's been saying a lot of the right things about how Donald Trump is bad and he needs to be excised as an aberration from the Republican Party and blah, 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 blah. Things that appeal to the fucking liberals, right? And Chelsea Handler now wants to fuck her or something because they're fucking ghouls, all of them. And I personally believe that this infighting is bullshit for the most part. Liz Cheney is basically creating a comfortable out for the Republicans to say, look, we're not the Marjorie Taylor Greene party. There's plenty of people that still are in support of me. I'm in a position of prominence in the Republican Party. So how could you say that? How could you say the Republicans are crazy? No, they're a big tent party, and that tent involves people like Liz Cheney, and it certainly involves people like Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Wyoming Congresswoman Liz Cheney, still the number 3 Republican in the House. Congresswoman, welcome back to Fox News Sunday.
Great to be back with you, Chris. Thanks for having me.
So, as Mike Emanuel just reported, yesterday, your home state, Wyoming Republican Party, censured you and called for you to resign immediately, saying that you had betrayed the trust of Wyoming voters. Are you going to step down?
I'm not, Mike and Chris, sorry. And look, I think people all across Wyoming understand and recognize.
Matt Gaetz literally went to Wyoming, openly admitted that that was the first time he's ever been in Wyoming, to a massive crowd, and talked about how Liz Cheney should be primaried. Okay? And people celebrated that. Mike Wallace? Why are people saying Mike Wallace? I said Matt Gaetz.
That our most important duty is to the Constitution. And as I've explained and will continue to explain to supporters all across the state and voters all across the state, the oath that I took to the Constitution compelled me to vote for impeachment, and it doesn't bend to partisanship. It doesn't bend to political pressure. It's the most important oath that we take. And so I will stand by that, and I will continue to fight for all of the issues that matter so much to us all across Wyoming.
They debated, your home state Republican Party, they debated for 11 minutes before deciding to censure you, the Congresswoman, the number 3 Republican in the House. What's that about?
Well, I think you have to read the language of the censure partly. I think, you know, that people in the party are mistaken. They believe that BLM and Antifa were behind what happened here at the Capitol. That's just simply not the case. It's not true. And we're going to have a lot of work we have to do. People have been lied to. The extent to which President Trump, for months leading up to January 6th, spread the notion that the election had been stolen or that the election was rigged was a lie. And people need to understand that. We need to make sure that we as Republicans are the party of truth and that we're being honest about what.
GOP party massive split coming soon? You're wrong. It's not. It's not coming. You're absolutely incorrect. No, there is no massive split. They're all cucks. They're going to cuck themselves to the Matt Gaetzes of the party. Matt Gaetz, Donald Trump, Marjorie Taylor Greene are going to be the future of the party. They are going to be the moderates, and even more psychopathic individuals are going to be the more psychopathic individuals that these establishment Republicans say they need to stop and purge within the party. This is the Republican Party. This has always been the Republican Party. This will continue to be the Republican Party. Okay? And there is no greater representation of that than the fact that they were completely united in, with the exception of 11 people that voted along with the Democrats, in removing Marjorie Taylor Greene from the fucking education committee position that she was in. Like, so why do you think there's a split? This person herself voted against removing Marjorie Taylor Greene. She is everything that Liz Cheney is criticizing within the Republican Party.
What really did happen in 2020. So we actually have a chance to win in 2022 and win the White House back in 2024.
You know, this happened with the Tea Party, and now you have the Freedom Caucus in the House. And those Freedom Caucus people became more fringe, some of them, and the others became more moderate, supposedly, in comparison to the likes of Marjorie Taylor Greene. And there's going to be the Q Caucus, basically. They'll have another name. Either they will join the Tea Party Caucus, which is the Freedom Caucus, or they will, you know, have their own fucking thing. But ultimately, like maybe they'll do a Trump caucus, but ultimately it's going to get crazier and crazier. More of those people are going to join the Republican Party. She was cucked to vote for MTG's committees. Yeah, like she ultimately did that, by the way. So that completely goes against her being like, we need to excise Donald Trump, and then turn around and vote for Marjorie Taylor Greene to remain? No. Like, anyway. Chad, you know one thing that can help minimum work wages a lot is unions? Yes, that's true. Oh, the guy who died, Ron Wright, by the way, we were going to talk about this. The Republican who died, the U.S. Congressman for Texas 6th District, died today or yesterday. And the day before he died, or I guess 2 days before he died, he tweeted this out. Democrats are choosing teachers' unions and special interests over the well-being of our students. The CDC says schools can safely reopen and proper precautions are taken. What are we taking? What are we waiting for? Malcolm, my old editor, not like YouTube editor, but copy editor, says, "Thank you for your well-considered position, Congressman. I look forward to seeing you follow." One of his relatives actually is in my chat. I know that. Shouts out to whoever Malcolm's, I think, cousin or something, nephew, who watches me. Thank you for your well-considered position, Congressman. I look forward to seeing you follow through and lead the effort in Congress to take on all those exaggerating the COVID threat. Yeah, he's great. I love Malcolm. No, he knows that the person was dead.
We have a little bit more sad news from the Capitol. We mentioned this at the top of the show. Texas Republican Congressman Wright, who had been battling lung cancer, died last night from health complications after being diagnosed with coronavirus. Wright announced that he contracted the virus on January 22nd and had been hospitalized for the past 2 weeks. He was first elected to Congress from the Dallas area in 2018. Before that, he served on the Arlington City Council and as Tarrant County tax assessor collector. Wright was 67 years old. He's survived by his wife, 3 children, and 9 grandchildren. Wright is the second elected member of Congress to die after contracting COVID-19, which has claimed the lives of more than 460,000 Americans. Louisiana Republican Congressman-elect Luke Latow died late last year from coronavirus complications just days before he was supposed to be sworn in. Our thoughts are with Congressman Wright's family and all of the other Americans who have lost loved ones over the course of the last days and weeks to this terrible virus.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.
Thoughts and prayers, dude. Okay, let's go back to this.
You know, there really, Congresswoman, are 2 questions here. One of which is the role of President Trump. That's going to be debated in the Senate this next week, but also the future of the Republican Party. In Washington this week, you survived a challenge to your position as the House Republican Conference chair, but there was fierce blowback to your decision to vote to impeach the president. Take a look at some of that.
She didn't just go voter conscious on the day of the vote. She spoke ahead of time, 36 hours, put out a statement. And
why is it that America has such a disappointing Congress? Because in a lot of ways...
Seriously, because Matt Gaetz is a part of it. Like, actually. And Jim Jordan. I really do despise those people. They're such fucking freaks, dude. Matt Gaetz does something to me. It is very weird. He is a unique type of freak that really fucks me up. Like, I can't stand him. He is like every part of his personality, like just manifests. He's just oozing with like this grimy, sleazy fucking used car dealer energy, and it fucking sucks.
Liz Cheney is exactly like Congress, deeply unpopular and owned by special interests.
Does it bother you that there was more open outrage among House Republicans to your vote to impeach the president, a vote of conscience, as you say, than to the years of misstatements by Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene?
Look, I think that, first of all, with respect to Congresswoman Greene, we've all been very clear. The things that she has said don't have any place in our public discourse.
And also, there should be no repercussions.
And we, as
which is what I voted for.
Republican conference, should deal with that issue. We should have dealt with it. That's not something that the Democrats should be addressing on the floor of the House. We should have dealt with that. With respect to where we are as a party, I think that the vote in conference made very clear we are the party of Lincoln. We are not the party of QAnon or anti-Semitism or Holocaust deniers or white supremacy or conspiracy theories. That's not who we are. We believe in conservative principles and conservative values, and we believe in the Constitution. And the extent to which, if you think about the threats that the nation faces, and you think about what happened on January 6th, I talked to Officer Sicknick's mother this week, and I pledged to her, as I know many of my colleagues have, that we will not forget what happened on January 6th, and that the single greatest threat to our republic is a president who would put his own self-interest above the Constitution, above the national interest. You know, we've had a situation where President Trump claimed for months that the election was stolen and then apparently set about to do everything he could to steal it himself. And that ended up in an attack on the Capitol, 5 people killed that day. That's the kind of attack that can never happen again. Our institutions held, but we all have an obligation to make sure that they continue to do so, and don't look past what happened on January 6th. It was, you know, just over a month ago.
I just want to ask you one more question about January 6th. When you voted to impeach the president, you said this. He, quote, summoned this mob, assembled the mob, and lit the flame of this attack. Everything that followed was his doing. There has never been a greater betrayal by a president of the United States of his office and his oath to the Constitution. Congresswoman, one of the things you certainly are is a straight talker. Would you vote to convict President Trump of incitement of insurrection?
If I were in the Senate, I would obviously listen to the evidence. I think that that's the role the Senate has as jurors. I would also point out, though, Chris, that the Senate trial is a snapshot. There is a massive criminal investigation underway. There will be a massive criminal investigation of everything that happened on January 6th and in the days before. People will want to know exactly what the president was doing. They will want to know, for example, whether the tweet that he sent out calling Vice President Pence a coward while the attack was underway, whether that tweet, for example, was a premeditated effort to provoke violence. There are a lot of questions that have to be answered, and there will be many, many criminal investigations looking at every aspect of this, at everyone who was involved, as there should be. But I stand firmly by my statement. We've never seen that kind of an assault by a president of the United States on another branch of government, and that can never happen again.
So just to press that, if you were in the Senate, would you vote to convict?
If I were in the Senate, I would listen to the testimony. I would listen to the evidence. If you're a senator, you have a responsibility to be a juror, and I think that's very important. But I obviously believe and did then that what we already know is enough for his impeachment. What we already know does constitute the gravest violation of his oath of office by any president in the history of the country. And this is not something that we can simply look past or pretend didn't happen or try to move on. We've got to make sure this never happens again.
I want to pick up on because you criticized, at the very beginning, you criticized Democrats for voting to strip Marjorie Taylor Greene of all of her committees. After the House voted this week to remove her from those committees, you issued a statement and you said this: Speaker Pelosi and the Democrat majority have no business determining which Republicans sit on committees.
She's basically just going to say, like, listen, she's basically going to say, I think that this should be handled internally by Republicans. It should not be left up to Democrats. That sets a negative or a horrible precedent, one that could be abused even by Republicans against Democrats in the future, blah, 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 blah. It's just because you have no backbone, and that's the real reason.
Committees, but Congresswoman, your GOP caucus...
Because the Republicans literally, when left to their own devices, the only people that were on the verge of punishment within the Republican Party was Liz Cheney, not Marjorie Taylor fucking Greene. And not only that, but at least behind closed doors, they defended Liz Cheney, okay, in a secret vote, but they very publicly supported Marjorie Taylor Greene. So do with that information what you will.
Debated this issue and ended up giving Congresswoman Greene a standing ovation. So can you really blame Democrats for moving to act when the House Republican caucus didn't?
We should have, Chris. This is exactly the kind of issue that we should address inside of our conference. You know, if you get into a situation where...
But you didn't.
whoever has the majority in the House decides who sits on committees from both parties, you might as well not have anybody in the minority on any committees. So it should not have gotten to the point that it did. I don't believe that the Democrats have any business determining who from the Republicans sits on committees, but we should have dealt with it ourselves. And I think it's very important that we're absolutely clear that those views and those beliefs do not have any place in our public discourse. We'll want to see action now from Congresswoman Green, that backs up the kinds of words that we